obviously disappointed with the loss on Saturday. I mean, it was a good football game. Two good teams played. Both teams played really, really hard. Very physical game. The speed of that game was we got two good teams playing. The speed's different. That's why you're good, because you got good speed and it's physical. When you go back and look at it on tape, I mean, it's just like we won the week before with a game of inches. We came up 2 points short the other day for same things. There's 70-some plays on offense, 50-some plays on defense. I think we played. Like I told our staff, is that you're going to pull out 5 or 6 plays where you can say, boy, this would have happened. Look what happens. But there's also, like I said, there's 60 other ones on offense that if everybody holds their block a little bit longer, if the receiver gets open by a little bit, runs just a little bit better route, then maybe you get 6 yards, or maybe you come out of a run and you get more points, or your twists are better, even though it was an incomplete pass. If your twist had been better on defense, maybe you get a sack on that play. So, those things matter. And then when you get down to individual plays that we all saw in the game, yeah, you miss a field goal. Yeah, there's 3 points. You give up a punt block. Very reliable player didn't follow his assignment and take 2 steps to his right and collect the guy, and you give up a safety there. Kalen Weathers, how many times has he gone up and made that catch in the end zone? And it comes off his fingertips. They bring a little pressure. Our guard slides, picks it up. But if he goes 6 more inches to his left, he collects that defensive lineman, and their number 97 doesn't get his hand on the quarterback because we got a little dig route coming wide open. It's fixing to be a big completion instead of a hit, and the ball pops up and turns into a pick 6. So that's why what happens. Okay, but got no problem with how hard our guys played. You just came up short. So now you move on. You can't control your destiny. Okay, I mean, we can sit here and speculate playoffs, this, that, and the other. Bottom line is you have to win to even entertain the thought. And we're playing a quality team this week that beat us last year here, 31-27. They're good football team. Statistically, they do some things really, really well. We got to go on the road and regroup, and this senior class got to get to that 6th win, got to get to that 7th total win. He was on the injury report today. He's got some cracked ribs, and I mean, that's what he came out for. So if there's any way possible, his last regular season senior season, I mean, he'll try to go, but still don't know the status of him yet. We've been by committee all year. LD and Najee's made some plays, and Jamie Bowe, Preston Bay. So it'll be by committee. I just hope he can get back, because he's meant a lot to this program, a lot to this team. So it'd be nice to have him one more time. Last couple of weeks, a lot of pressure's been coming. Jared, obviously you don't want to just sit there and rush 3, rush 4. We've done a good job with that. Yeah, some of it's because of a lot of good players. I mean, good players rushing the passer. Some of it's because they've got good scheme, and you miss ID, who you're accountable for out of that 3-4. That's one of the reasons of that 3-4 scheme. You got to make sure that 7 guys are accounted for, and then make sure your slides and your backs go in the right direction. So some of it's scheme as well as good players. That's very concerning. Very, very concerning. And that was I haven't got to that individual game yet, but I remember seeing earlier in the year when we were looking at Murray's defense, and I kept looking, although I didn't flip over and watch Simo's offense or Simo's defense versus Murray's offense. I was just looking at Murray's defense against Simo's offense. But yeah, that's concerning. I mean, nobody holds Murray to 10 points. So for them to be able to do that is outstanding defense. Yeah, I mean, that he's good. The receiver's really good. I mean, if physically he may be the best in the league, probably. I think he would probably be an NFL type guy. You play cat and mouse with it. Sometimes you bracket him, then that leaves you singled up other places. Sometimes you got to single him up, bring some pressure, hope you get to him before they get the ball off, because he's tall and athletic and goes up and makes plays. The running back, I've seen him, each week. He's extremely fast and physical, and yeah, he's not big in stature, but he sure does run hard and really, really jumps out. And I tell you what, since they made the coaching change last year, coaches he's done a great job. They have they carry themselves a little differently. They have a belief system. They're really physical, and we found out the hard way last year. Little tweaks and stuff after 10-game season so far, but they're, like I said, they're a 3-4 defense, and then they've moved to under, and a lot of different pressure, a lot of big strong guys up front, and stop the run and give you some multiple things. So it's each week brings different challenges. This past week, 4-man front with a lot of different pressures, and this week 3-4 with different pressures, and we'll have to get us a plan and get ready to execute. Well, you saw them. That was good. You stopped the tailback. And you stopped the throwing game. What were they, 8 for 18? Throwing the football. What were they, 3 of 10, 3 of 11 on third downs? I mean, that's huge. Kept the scoring defense, down. I mean, what did we give up? 2 touchdowns and a field goal probably, and that's playing off of 4 turnovers on our offense. So that was really good. Now, things that we got to do better. The quarterback, they had a couple triple options that got out and they did a good job scheming us up, and we had to make some adjustments to shut that down. Then they just dropped back to pass. You kind of pick your poison. Do you cover? And then the quarterback, Jared Neal's been able to step up against some coverages and take off and run and get some first downs. So you take an athlete like Whitlow that's able to do that. Then that's when some of those big runs came out. With him just on just scrambles. And so that's. But I was real pleased with our defense. Thought they gave us a chance. The 4 turnovers. I mean, that's 8 in 2 weeks. We know that. Okay, but one of them you get hit and the ball comes up. The last one, when you're in the hurry up mode, I mean, you're trying to go 80 yards. Okay, maybe throw the ball away, play for the next play. I get it. I'd like to see the receiver fight a little bit more to go break that ball up. I thought we should have broken that ball up. The one that was real discouraging, and nobody feels worse than Jared, was that they bracketed his coverage in the red zone. And he saw it, and why he forced the football. I mean, he did, and he doesn't need to make that mistake, because that's 2 weeks in a row with same type scenarios that we haven't gotten field goals out of that. At least get a field goal out of that, and you lose by 2, and that's one of the plays you look back for. But heck, that's, like I said, I called 75 plays the other day, and you could scrutinize me and say, why'd you put us in that formation and that call? So, nobody's perfect, and he's human, and but statistically, it doesn't look very good. But he's our quarterback, and he'll play well again this week. You complete 30 balls. Now you complete 30 balls. Okay. Now give Eastern Illinois credit for this. You complete 30 passes for 300-something yards, and the longest one was 27. Okay, so they played one high, and so all the posts were gone, and they did well enough to stop the run, and and so you could complete some balls. And now it was man coverage most of the time, but we just couldn't. You needed a DB to fall down or somebody else to break a tackle, to come out and really flip the field. But complete 30 balls. I thought the offensive line protected well, except a couple one out of 49 throws. Okay, so a lot of good things happened. Just came up. We've been able to score in that red zone all year. We've been really good in the red zone, but they did a nice job. That's why they only give up 21 points a game, is they really do a nice job schematically, and their players giving them credit, and that's all we could get. Dynamic on offense. I say dynamic. They got physically one of the best receivers in the league, one of the fastest running backs, and their quarterback's really impressed me over the year as he's taken over, of being a young quarterback, to where sometimes he doesn't look like a freshman. He looks like a guy that's going to really be a good player in this league. And they've always got different option components in their offense. They've all got different speed sweeps, so they got some deception to it as well. And last year we didn't play very. We got 31 points against them, some big plays. They took advantage of us, their offense against our defense last year, with some big plays. So that concerns me. And then defensively, being able to, their defense against our offense is, they don't give up a whole lot of big plays. They give up some yards, but they don't give up a whole lot of points. I mean, what is that, 27 points a game? Is that what it is? I mean, that's not a whole lot. I mean, that's pretty good. So, will you be able to score enough points and find a way. No, it would be, you'd reflect on it and you would say, you know, that's, anybody in our league can finish 6-2. You're pretty proud of that. I mean, you really are. Now, you played this to get in the playoffs, and us being 5-1, there'll be some disappointment, you know, in that. But, you know, you tell me before the season with some different injuries and stuff that we had, we're 6-2. I'd say, you know, great job by our players, great job by our coaches. You know, now one of the things, and this, I'll address the playoff issue because, you know, if we don't play, we probably won't have a press conference next week. So, you know, I'm bummed out about this a little bit. Nothing I can do, but I'm going to, you know, plead my case. You play, if you were to finish 6-2 in the conference, 7-4 overall, okay, and if things play out and EKU beats, you know, EIU, you know, it's going to be a good game. And there's 3 teams tied at 6-2 in the conference. And I guess that would put EKU at 7-4, us at 7-4, EIU at 6-5, even though they're 6-2 in the conference. Okay, you know, we've had the 8th, what is it? One time ranked the 8th toughest schedule in the country. Okay, you know, you got your 2 SEC teams. Now, the thing that's been brought to my attention is this, and I get it. You know, we played Bethel, we played NAIA school, and East Kentucky played Valpo, a non-scholarship but Division I. You know, look at Valpo's record. Okay, I think they're 1-9 or something at this point, if I'm correct on that, doing our research. You know, it's still non-scholarship, okay, compared to NAIA. Now, these non-scholarship Division I schools, when you get a game with them, and I don't know if this was the case in theirs, but when we reach out to try to get a game, we needed a home game. We needed a home game. We only had 4 home games. So when we reach out to those schools to try to, you know, get a guaranteed game with them, hey, we'll pay you to come in here. You know, their price is more expensive than we can afford to pay, because they know that, you know, it's like a Sunbelt school or whatever going to an SEC school, right? They're going to pay them more than they pay us because we're, you know, an FCS school. So, you know, if that's the reason that we don't get chosen with 3 teams tied at 6-2, then that comes down to a money issue, and I'm pretty bummed out about that. Okay, because you could play a non-scholarship, you know, pay them $80,000 or whatever it is, $100,000. Because I've reached out to several of them trying to get them to come here. You know, coach would be glad to, but this is what we require in a guarantee game, which they got to pay bills as well. Right now, we can't afford that. So when I have to drop down to get an NAIA school to fill a spot, and if that gets held against us, you know, if 3 teams are tied at 6-2, and they take a team over us because they played a non-scholarship that doesn't have any wins or 1 win up to this point, you know, and for whatever reason in the coaches poll ranked ahead of us after we beat them, you know, I would fuss against that, but it's out of my control. Yeah, I would hope, you know, everybody puts together their bullet points and said, hey, please, you know, please take a look at that, you know, look at this, you know, our two SEC opponents compared to, you know, East Kentucky's ACC and their one SEC. You know, Ole Miss, and you know, you can say, well, they played Kentucky a lot better, and they did, played great against them. You know, but that's still not Ole Miss and Arkansas the way they're playing, you know, right now. That's why our scores are a little bit different than that. So, you know, like I said, everybody's put together their bullet points, and you know, you hate that it's got to be politicked out to, you know, to get a vote. And I would say, you know, it's been multiple, you know, more years for us getting back in than it has been for EIU or EKU. You know, so give us an opportunity to get back in there. You know, the team that hadn't been, it's been longer since they've been back. You know, so. We'll see how the scenario shakes out. But I think it would be a travesty, you know, if only 1 team in our league. If 3 teams ended up tied at 6-2 and they only took Jacksonville State, you know, that's a bad deal for our conference. I mean, that's the #1 team in the country, you know, and we lost by 7. We're 9 points away from being undefeated in the league going into this week. So, you know, I'm going to fight for my kids. I'm going to fight for our program, just like I'm sure, you know, Eastern Illinois, East Kentucky will fight for theirs as well. I've been told multiple things. You know, multiple things, you know, but once again, that was one of the issues that I addressed, you know, was the NAIA school compared to the non-scholarship, FCS school. Once again, you know, that turns into a money issue, and that turns into, you know, some of these NAIA schools, because of the standards, are a little bit less academically, and some, you know, are you know, good football programs, and you know, compared to a non-scholarship. So anyway, that's more of a you know, national issue. And we talk about that at head coaches meetings all the time of, you know, yeah, you increased it to 24, but you also gave some conferences some automatic bids. You know, in 2012, we got left out. Us and East Kentucky were both 6-2, and they only took 1, you know, that year. But when 1 team in our league is the #1 team in the country, you know, I don't understand that your credibility of your league should be significantly high. And so I would hope that people that make these decisions would really look over it. We've got a marquee quarterback, You know, we put points on the board. You know. For whatever it's worth, you know, we had more yards against Arkansas than, you know, most teams who just, you know, run off 2 SEC teams, and we had 500-something yards, and our kids played well and competed, you know, especially offensively that game. So, like I said, you know, I'm gonna plug my team. That's my job, and but if we could get in, we would represent, you know, we would represent our team, our conference well.